LS573, and these are some considerations about implementation. Once we have gone through the whole process of selecting an ILS, of course, the most important part is the end part when we are in the stage of implementing the new system. There are many things that we have to take into consideration when implementing a new system. Of course, there is all the things in regards to hardware, and if we're buying from a vendor, he will have recommendations of what we have to have in terms of, if we are going to get servers, or if there's the installation of those servers, power supplies, cables, if we need a firewall for our internet connection. Of course we do. If we need a new library URL, backup systems for storage, electrical wiring, cables, room for servers and hardware, installation of new software. Networking is also, let me correct this, networking is also very important, because what we need to have all the peripherals, the input and output peripherals to speak to each other, to be communicated with each other. We have to have a very a strong network in our library. Of course, this all depends on if we're talking about like a small library or a large library system. Then the difficulties and the tasks are also different. But like we have been talking about in this class about smaller libraries or rural libraries, well, we have to have a robust hardware in order to run this ILS system. And imagine also if we are going to have an open access ILS such as Koha, then we need to get, if we don't have the human resources to do that, but we don't have the funding to get a turnkey system, we need to have at least part-time. We need to have somebody who is familiar with networking, and somebody who will assist and train the staff on how to keep the network running. Okay, so that will be more like an IT position or IT part-time position. We have to take that into consideration, because if we get a open access system, it will depend on us. Okay, but if you have a contract with a vendor, well, maybe that vendor is going to support in terms of hardware, software, and migration, data migration too. This is crucial. And so the new systems can work well. Of course, in this case, we're talking about when we have a legacy system and we want to update what we already have. If starting from zero, then it's more problematic. As I was saying, we need to have the network so we can, with all the peripherals, which are like input or output, they can communicate. Okay, the workstations, the printers, if we have a photocopy machine, if we're going to use a telephone notification equipment, if we are using RFIDs, etc., and any other peripheral for entering information or for outputting information. They need to be communicated in this intranet. We're talking about what is inside the library. So that's the intranet, okay? And of course, we have to have, and this is very important, once we want to connect that intranet, or at least some services for that of the intranet to the internet, so our patrons are able to access resources from the website, not only information, but resources such as ebooks or articles, etc. We have to implement also, we have to get that service, and we have to implement a very strong security system, which is not easy, because as we can see in the last few years, how many attacks have occurred in networks who are supposed to be more secure. Imagine if they want to attack a library system. It would be very easy for those hackers. One of the things that we have to be more careful about, and I don't think I should make more effort to point this out, is the information that is confidential from our patrons. Okay, because we have, of course, a Patreon module where we may have their names, addresses, phone numbers, etc. That has to be protected, and of course, no one can. So we have to make sure that we have all the protections, so hackers cannot get into that information. Of course, if they try, they will, and that happens to banks all the time, and to other credit card services where they steal all the information. And they are supposed to have that information more secure than a library could. Why? Because they are running a business and they have more funding. Another aspect that is very, very important when we are doing this migration to a new system is to have staff training, okay? And everything starts with good communication, with shared values, with a shared vision of what we're doing. And of course, then you have to get everybody on board to do these training sessions. If we're using a vendor, well, he can provide the training. It may be online or it may be on site. If we are doing our own upgrade to an open access system, then we need to have that IT person doing the training. Okay, that's very important. One thing that it's tied to that, it's the data migration, because we have all those records probably in a prior older system, and we have to migrate those records to the new system. So we will have to work very closely with the vendor. In terms of staff for migration, of course, everybody will be involved in this small library, but it would be a great idea if we can point to one person who is going to be in charge of this. If we're going to have an online catalog, an OPAC, well, we have to make sure that we have migrated complete records for searching and for circulation and so on. That's the key. Remember that a database application, and the ILS is a database application, it's a SQL application, is an empty vessel unless we put information. And if we don't put the right information, the right records, then we won't be able to retrieve that digital representation of our resources or of our holdings in the library. But what is the goal of all of that? The goal is to provide better services and access to collections to patrons. That's the whole idea. If we're going to migrate to a better system or a more up-to-date system, the whole idea is that we can provide a better service. If that's not our goal, then it's not worth doing it. Okay, so one of the things that we have to do, we have to market the new system and the new updated website to our patrons so they can make use of all the new advantages that they will have in terms of information that they can get from our website, to digital or electronic reference if we are adding that on, and of course to being able to get digital information such as ebooks, magazines, and so on, depending on what we are implementing and what our funding is. But the idea is that they get familiar with that. How do we get patrons familiar with that? Well, we can do demonstrations maybe. We can do sessions, but if that's too complicated, we can have brochures and flyers on the new on new features that they can use and make a more, and they use and increase the use of our library resources. That's that's our goal, to increase that use of resources and to make them better for our patrons. We have to tell them about the advantages in circulation now, and the remote access features. If we have reading lists and resource recommendation guides, ebooks, and all the content that they can retrieve from our library website. Okay, so the whole idea of doing an ILS upgrading is to offer better services and better access to our collections. If we don't, and that has to be in the vision when we set up to update our ILS. Don't ever forget that our patrons are the service and that we can provide to our patrons. That's our main goal. Okay, that's our main goal as librarians.